Welcome back to TheChowTimePod. It's your host, Red. I got a video today from whatever podcast clips. It's their clips channel. And are passports bros being taken advantage of? Let's check it out. So please subscribe down below. I really appreciate that. And let's get to that chow. It's chow time.
We have Jason Tao, Brian. This is why there are is that grammar?
Passport bros.
This is
There
why there's
are-
a passport bro movement.
No, 45 to 50% of women ages 30 and older will be single by 2030. Brian, what do you in the panel, by the way, it's with an I, how dare you, Jason? What do you in the panel think about the passport bro, and do you and the panel agree with the passport bro movement? Me personally, I think it's cool. I think if you go to where you're appreciated, and if you're
Right.
a guy and you're in the West and you cannot find eligible partner that's going to appreciate you here in the West, and you can find that in Latin America, Southeast Asia, wherever it may be, Eastern Europe, go for it.
Can you kind of elaborate on passport bros?
Well, passport bros, basically, it's men who are dissatisfied with the women in the local environment. So typically you find them in Western countries. So the United States, other Western countries, probably UK, Australia, just Western countries that are probably like a little more
different values.
starting to go a bit woke and like, yeah. So they'll often go to Latin America. They'll often go to
So it's like
Thailand or Vietnam
Europe?
or just various
Colombia.
mail order
different
side?
countries
Is that
where-
what we're talking about?
No, well, not necessarily,
Not quite.
but where the perception is that in these countries women are more traditional, they're more feminine, et cetera, and so they're moving there. And I think one interesting thing is men from
moving
other
there?
countries. So we have men from Western countries in the U.S. that are going to these other countries to find women, but there's no men from other countries coming to the U.S. clamoring to get with American women. So
That's one of the greatest points out there that I don't mention too often. Yeah, there's no men of any other country really coming to the West to look for, eligible wives and mothers here. That isn't the case. It's men leaving here to go look for eligible wives and mothers in other countries. Just think about it that way, guys.
I'd just like to add in terms of the passport bro movement, I would encourage men to be careful because, like, as a Western man, I mean, I've seen it before. I've had friends that are like passport bros or whatever. I've dated passport bros before, and I kind of noticed that they have a tendency to be more effed over, if you will, or used for their money. Usually if they're coming from Western societies, have a passport, citizenship, stuff like that. I would urge men to be careful and not to just think that the world is kind of their playground, although I would not judge them for wanting to go to a different country to find a woman of different
I
value.
think you should be careful here as well.
Yeah. It's
funny, these women warning us of women just like them in other countries. We know. It's as if it's a revelation that women nature is different in other countries overall. It isn't, but they were trained a little bit differently. Yes, you can get fucked over in any country. You get fucked over more in this country than I believe in any of those other countries, for sure. Just because how laws are set and just how the expectations of women are. So
Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely. Of course. I mean, that goes without saying, right?
50% divorce rate.
So I
But I've
know
seen the videos like of passport bros coming out and being like, "Oh, I got duped. Like I got played by."
Yeah.
I
Of
know
course.
3
So-
passport bros. I don't know if anyone here personally knows them. I know 3, and none of them have a great ending. I'm not saying I'm against it, but I do think there's a little more to it, I think, than it seems on the surface. And I'm only speaking anecdotally. I'm sure a lot of men have gone and found wonderful women. I think that's great. If the women here aren't satisfactory to them, go. But it is not all sunshine and rainbows going
I
to
always say
another
that.
country and finding a woman.
yeah, I mean, I don't think the whole passport bros thing, it's like, wow, this is just gonna, there's certainly room for things to not work out
I mean,
well, but
I mean, the passport, like one that I know went to South America, found a woman, brought dated her for a while, brought her back here, and then as soon as she could divorce him, she did, got her citizenship.
That's something
So
to be-
then,
yeah.
so he went back to South America.
Got another one.
He's currently there, and he will not leave the country because he's like, I know that the woman will leave me if I take her to America. So the thing that men need to understand is, by all means, go and do that. But if they're under the impression that those women don't see them as a resource and even more of a resource than the average American woman,
Yes.
they just need to know that. And if they're okay with
I love it. I love it. I love that these women are warning us about the women exactly like them. Why? Because they're the ones that want the resources. They're the ones that want it all. They don't want the passport bros to leave and give these resources to these other women. They want it for themselves. This is like it's very telling how they explain things and try to warn us passport bros about things.
the sex money exchange and being seen as a resource.
That's
And
exactly what
not
it is
all
here.
women and it's not all men. But I also know one who's here. He's in his 70s now. Like, he was one of the first passport bros, and he has a wife who's like 30 years younger than him. She waits on him hand and foot, does all the things. I mean, she's a servant to him. Ultimately, she's waiting for him to die so she can have his house, have his money. Does she love him? Yes. Are they in love? No. But that's
It doesn't matter. She loves him and takes care of him and does what he needs to do. So, like, how do you know she's just waiting for him to die? Like, that is so presumptuous of these women or this particular woman to think this. Some women are genuinely happy. They're like, you know what? I get to spend time with him. He takes care of me. When he does pass, I do get some money out of it, but I don't think these women are just wishing their men to die. That's more of an American thing, in my opinion, in the Western culture, that where they marry men, older men, and just, oh, hopefully he dies and he leaves me everything.
an option if that's something you're into.
I want to touch on that in
Prometheus
just a sec.
donated $100.
Thank you, Prometheus.
Big Ed Brown, if you can call him Big Ed, was Passport Bro from 90 Day Fiancé.
See, that's why I was super confused when like I first heard about passport bros, because like growing up, all I ever really knew about like those type of relationships was like from what I seen in 90 Day Fiancé, where it's like not even just with the man coming from America, even like when it's women sometimes and men from other countries, it's usually so obvious that they're just trying to either get a visa or get some money.
Sure.
That's why I was like surprised when I heard that it was like not for those reasons.
This is exactly why women think the way they do. Just like her. She didn't know anything about it other than from 90 Day Fiancé, from TV. One, those are paid actors. And two, they pick the weirdest, the craziest people to kind of like fill in the show because they need drama. But these women think that is a representation of what true passport bros are. And, it really isn't. But this is why they talk out of their ass, thinking that women are there. They're uneducated. They don't speak English. All this junk, just because they don't truly understand and they've never traveled to these countries themselves.
Like I don't.
Well, I think it could be toxic when it's mixed with red pill rhetoric. So, like, you
What?
have the passport bros kind of fall under, like, this red pill movement. And I think that, like, the red pill movement, a lot of the time say that, like, get as much money as you can, be successful, be a high-value man, and that also includes providing for women. And so when you combine that philosophy or that value system of provisioning for women, and then you combine that with being a passport bro, you're more likely and more inclined to get screwed over. And that's my concern.
You don't concern. She's not concerned for men. She really isn't. She's quite condescending when she's speaking, and just the way she's speaking, as if she knows like that it's better, it's worse off over there than it is here for red pill men. If red pill men are much more stringent on vetting women, much more stringent on vetting women than the average man out there. So, and through our movement, we tell men it's not rainbows and sunshine. You still need to vet these women very carefully, because women nature is still women nature. It doesn't matter what country you go to. But it's just funny that, again, they always want to warn you about the women that are exactly like them, as if we don't deal with this on a normal basis already here in the U.S.
Go ahead, Brian.
Oh, well, certainly these men who are passport bros can certainly be preyed upon, and some of these women certainly may be predatory. However, I'm sure there's, in the same way that there's men who are getting, screwed over, or it's a very transactional relationship, I'm sure there's also women in these countries that are happy to actually have a genuine relationship with these men. So, and also a lot of these men, some of them might bring the women back here, but a lot of them are expats, and they're just going to live in fucking
That's true.
Thailand or the Philippines or wherever it is, and
It's probably
they've
smarter.
just moved there, and
Because
it's
of
much
figuring-
more the
Now, are
cost of
women
living
doing
is.
this too,
Yeah,
or
it's
is it just
cheaper.
men?
Women?
Women really don't. I don't think women travel
Passport gals,
else.
like
I don't think that's a
what would that
thing.
be?
I mean, maybe.
Well, I
there's
mean,
some, but-
like, because I've heard
They
of,
try.
obviously, like, bringing younger men here, like, older women, you know what I mean? Getting younger
pretty
men.
rare, I
Yeah, I've never
suspect.
heard
But
that
You know,
It happens with
oh,
us,
sorry. Hold
I think what I can appreciate about Passport Bros is I think it's an effective like flag being raised for Western women as well. Like I'm not necessarily saying that they're going to find someone. I'm not saying that they're not going to get screwed over. I'm not even necessarily saying that I would encourage men to go do it. Like you said, if you want to, cool, go do it. I do think though that the motivation for it is the fact that men are still expected to act very traditionally. They're expected to be very chivalrous. They're expected, to be protectors. Maybe they're not expected to provide to the same extent now that women can essentially match them on income up to basically a certain point where maybe men start to be willing to negotiate harder as they get older. Maybe women decide to settle down and be mothers to put a sort of halt in their career. Talk about that, right? But men don't need to be as strict of provisioners the way that they used to be. But they still need to be protectors. They still need to take care of you. They still are expected to do things like open your door, give the jacket, like when you're cold, things like that. But if that's what a man's duty to you is, to be chivalrous, it's very, very loosely defined what a woman's duty
Absolutely.
to a man is.
It's very ambiguous.
And that is why I think they go to places where they are actually taught from a young age how to treat a man. What is your duty to a man? And whether you want to talk about in the context of the word submission, which I know that a lot of girls don't like, me and her use the word deference instead of submission. Sounds a little bit better. It's like she wants to defer to her.
It's just sad that we have to use different vocabulary, even though we're trying to say the exact same thing, because women have a way with the word, a certain word, and they take a certain word the wrong way. It's crazy that because of feminism and feminism, just that men have to tiptoe along so many lines now.
Her man a little bit more than he defers to her, which is essentially submitting. But I would love to know what you guys think. If men have those duties to you, and that's an expected duty, what do you think your duty to men is?
I think that's the importance of having, for me personally, having my identity with God. And because in the Bible it lays out what a woman should be. In
Proverbs 31?
31, I actually read that today. Yes, and it's beautiful. It's nothing that holds women back, and instead it like you embrace your natural state. It's like you thrive the most in this setting. And so I feel like all women can thrive most when they have a relationship with God. So that's my stance.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I don't agree with that you have to have a relationship with God. Could you repeat the question again?
Well, I said...
What do I think about deference or submission?
Well, not necessarily.
What is the female equivalent of chivalry?
Yeah. If men have a duty to you, and we sort of define that duty as chivalry, this concept, right? What would be the female version of chivalry?
Well,
what would female duty to a man look
I would
like?
say due to fourth wave feminism, it's become so amorphous. But I would say that we're probably going to see a division of women that are hyper feminine.
How's that chow? What these women are talking about. It's funny that they want to feel like experts when they come and talk on these panels, but they don't experience these things themselves, so it's very hard for them to fully understand it. And they give us these warnings because they have people that have gone through the bad stuff. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that in a sense, but I think it's better to be hearing it from men that actually have gone through it and are experiencing it. Just because men don't give a fuck about what women tell them sometimes, especially when you don't experience it yourself, that you live in such a bubble. So please subscribe down below. I'd really appreciate that, and I'll catch you guys next time. Ciao.